The deep state is erasing our border on purpose, and it's not just the United States of America. Stay tuned and I'll tell you more. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Deep State. I'm your host, Alex Newman, senior editor at the New American Magazine. Thank you so much for tuning in. The deep state is currently in the process of collapsing what's left of our border, and they're doing this very deliberately. They're doing this very strategically. This is not just happening in the United States, it's happening all across the Western world. And if you just look at what's been going on in the last few weeks, right? Biden sued the state of Arizona to dismantle the makeshift border fence that the governor had put up there using shipping containers, and the state of Arizona agreed they're going to take it down. As we speak right now, we're recording a little bit right before Christmas. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of immigrants, illegal immigrants, waiting at the border, waiting for a ruling on Title 42. Title 42 put some limitations on who could come here and apply for asylum during the COVID pandemic. Biden is trying to lift that because asylum is one of the ways that they have opened the floodgates to the United States. Basically, anybody who claims that they're scared, I got robbed, somebody extorted me, whatever, the Biden administration is letting them come to the United States and putting them on the pathway to living here permanently. We've got massive groups waiting at the border. You can see the thermal imaging. And it's at this point, the illegal immigrants don't even bother hiding from the Border Patrol. They actually run and look for Border Patrol agents because they know they'll get papers. They'll be released into the United States. They might have a court case in a few years. They might or might not show up. Folks, this is all happening very deliberately. We have talked to experts who've said that more than 4 million illegal immigrants have come across the border just since Joe Biden took office less than 2 years ago. And during these next 2 years, it may get even worse. This abominable omnibus spending bill that was just passed with the help of numerous Republican senators and the Rhino Mitch McConnell. Yeah, it's got hundreds of millions of dollars for border security in Oman, in Egypt, in Jordan. And yet there's a specific clause in there that says Customs and Border Protection may not use this money to improve border security in the United States. You've got massive numbers of illegal, unaccompanied children being trafficked across the border with the help from the Biden administration, with the help from religious organizations. And whistleblower actually came out. We talked about it here at the New American. Project Veritas interviewed this whistleblower saying that, human traffickers are funneling children through here. The kids are being told to say that the person picking you up is your aunt or your uncle, when, of course, they've never seen this person before. So the Biden administration is now complicit in the trafficking of children. Meanwhile, Republican Rhino senators working with Democrats are working to increase the pull of the magnet. Shortly before the session went out, some Republicans, people like Senator Tillis of North Carolina, were working with Senator Sinema of Arizona to try to pass amnesty for millions of illegal immigrants, which, of course, sends out a big green light, a flashing neon banner to all the rest of the world that, hey, get to America quick. You will get put on the pathway to citizenship, even if you got here illegally. And I say this as somebody who grew up in Mexico, who grew up in South America. I say this as somebody who's married to an immigrant who came to this country legally. And yet this abuse, this horror show that is happening is part of a deep state agenda. It has nothing to do with compassion. It has nothing to do with humanitarianism. It is a plan to ultimately destroy the nation state, and we'll get to that. And in fact, the Europeans are already a little bit further along than us. You've got London now. Brits are a minority in their own capital city. You've got in Brussels, the capital of Belgium, Belgians are a minority in their own capital city. Frankfurt, one of the major cities of Germany. Germans are a minority in their own big cities. Sweden, in Malmo, one of the biggest cities in Sweden. Swedes are now a minority in their own city. And soon, if this continues, and it will continue, right? Once one gets here, then they got the chain migration. They bring their cousins, their brothers, their aunts, their uncles, their grandmas, and everybody else. It's just a never-ending deluge. And in fact, according to the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset Klaus Schwab clowns, you can expect 1 billion people to come very soon to a country near you. They're saying that climate change is going to displace a bunch of people, and they are going to be coming to your country, right? There's about 330 million people in America, maybe 500 million in Europe. What do you think it'll look like when 1 billion people show up to move into the United States and Europe, right? Americans will be a minority in their own country. Europeans will be minorities in their own countries. The Japanese have been smart enough to resist this trend. But folks, what's happening here is very, very serious. And ultimately, this means the end of the nation state. They've been working on this for a long time. This is not a new phenomenon. Climate change is just the newest justification. But actually, if you know anything about the World Economic Forum, you know that they're not in the business so much of making predictions as they are trying to drive their agenda in the direction that they want it to go. They've got a guy called Peter Schwartz, the world's leading scenario planner. And he comes up with these kinds of scenarios and then uses different possible outcomes to try to steer things in the direction that they want. And that's exactly what's happening here, right? He wrote a book that I'm reading right now called The Art of the Long View. So they come up with these scenarios, what might happen, and then it's basically like they're writing a script, right? And so these are the different options. How do we steer things in the direction that we want them to go? And so this thing with the mass migration, folks, is part of a deliberate, coordinated attack on our country. We saw it in 2014, 2015, 2016, with the millions of so-called refugees that were flooding into the Western world. From Syria, from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Libya, from all the other countries that the globalists were destroying. So they follow a very simple recipe, right? First, you destroy a country, you bomb it to smithereens, right? In Libya, they bomb the infrastructure, the water, the sewage treatment plants. So you cause this terrible crisis where people can no longer live in their own country. And then you roll out the red carpet and you say, hey, we'll send airplanes down. We'll send ships down. We'll pick you up. You can go set up and live in Sweden or in Germany or in France or in the United States of America. We'll call you a refugee, right? They did it in Iraq, right? Citing a UN resolution. Bush invaded. Christians have been almost exterminated in this country where they've lived for basically 2,000 years. The population of Christians was in the millions when Bush decided to invade. Now it's very rare to see a Christian anymore. They are an endangered species. Afghanistan, of course, Libya, another example, right? Obama partnered with Al-Qaeda, with the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, an Al-Qaeda front group, against former U.S. ally Muammar Gaddafi, right? They destroyed that country. They turned it into just a giant war zone. Syria, same thing, right? They funded rebels and revolutionaries there to try to go against their former ally, Bashar al-Assad. So they're doing this on purpose, folks. So they burn down these countries, and then they say, oh, well, you know, you could always come to America, right? And you'll get free healthcare, you get free school for your kids, you get free apartment, and all the rest of it. Okay, now let's look at the humanitarian ruse, because for a while they were telling us, oh, it's just humanitarian. We're just so caring. We're just so loving that after destroying these countries, we decided to bring them all here. Now, if you were a true humanitarian, you'd look at the numbers. Okay, you could support 25 to 50 times more people for the same amount of money in Lebanon or in Jordan or in Saudi Arabia than you could in Europe, than you could in Germany or Sweden and the United States. Why would you want to resettle those people into America or Sweden or Germany when you could take care of 50 times more people for the same amount of money? Well, you wouldn't do that if you were a humanitarian. Also, the idea that you're going to destroy somebody's country to show how humanitarian you are, that's insane, right? If I burn down your house and then invite you into my neighbor's house and tell my neighbor that he needs to support you, you wouldn't consider that humanitarian. You'd call the police, right? You'd report me for arson. You'd report me for helping and aiding and co-conspiring with a burglary of a dwelling, right? You would never accept that. And so these same disgusting globalists, these same deep staters who pretend to be so humanitarian, they say, well, you know, we're just being humanitarian. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is a crime spree. And then after the humanitarian ruse was exposed, they said, oh, well, it's because we need new workers, right? We don't have enough workers. We need more workers or our economies aren't going to function. Absolute baloney, right? The studies that have been done, in fact, a guy I know in Sweden did some of the financial analysis here. The idea that these refugees, these mass migration immigrants are going to start contributing to the treasury. You know, when you look at that, there's no date in the future where we can say at that point they're going to become net contributors to the treasury. Instead, they are massive drains on the welfare system. They're getting free housing, free healthcare, free government money, free school for their children, and many of them are not even working, and the ones that are working are not working nearly enough, earning nearly enough to pay for all the things that taxpayers are being expected to pay. So this is not about fixing government finances, right? This is not about being humanitarian. There is a different agenda at work. Now, the UN's migration czar, Peter Sutherland, a former Goldman Sachs, a regular Bilderberg attendee, he actually explained very clearly what was going on here. The UN actually put this interview up on their website, and I want to quote what he said to you. He said, I will ask the governments to cooperate, to recognize that sovereignty is an illusion. Sovereignty is an absolute illusion that has to be put behind us. The days of hiding behind borders and fences are long gone. We have to work together and cooperate to make a better world. And that means taking on some of the old shibboleths, taking on some of the old historic memories and images of our own country, and recognizing that we're part of humankind. Did you see that, folks? Okay. The days of borders and national sovereignty, that's gone. Okay. Why? Because of mass migration. They're doing this on purpose. The one guy who has clearly articulated what's going on here, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, he actually very boldly explained what was happening here. I was over in Budapest some years ago, had the opportunity to interview their Secretary of State, Zoltán Kovács. You can go back and watch that interview. He talks a little bit about this, but at the Prime Minister's office, I had a chance to talk to some of these people, and they really get it. They really get it, but it's one of the few governments in the world that is resisting this. But I want to read you what Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban said about what's happening here. He said, and obviously he said this in Hungarian, this is translated into English. He said, "It's forbidden to point out that the masses arriving from other civilizations endanger our way of life, our culture, our customs, and our Christian traditions. It is forbidden to point out that this is not an accidental and unintentional chain of consequences, but a pre-planned and orchestrated operation, a mass of people directed toward us." He said, "It's forbidden to say that in Brussels they are concocting schemes to transport foreigners here as quickly as possible and to settle them here among us. It is forbidden to point out that the purpose of settling people here is to reshape the religious and cultural landscape of Europe and to re-engineer its foundations, thereby eliminating the last barrier to internationalism, or globalism as we call it, the nation states." And he is exactly right, folks. That is what's going on here. They want to make it so that you wake up one day and you look around and you say, wow, I'm surrounded by people who don't speak the same language as me, don't believe the same things as I believe, have nothing to do with me, have no, and then, I mean, the United States is a good example. We're importing millions and millions of foreigners and then telling them that America's evil and racist and that they need to overthrow the system. Right? Sweden's doing the same thing. Germany's doing the same thing. It's absolutely bonkers. The only way that you can understand this is if you realize that they want us to wake up one day and realize, hey, what does a country even mean anymore, right? Why do we have these arbitrary lines around this group of people from all over with all different languages, all different backgrounds, all different religions? That's where they're going with this, folks. It's an effort to smash the nation state and build first regional governments like the European Union, like the African Union, and then a one world government, which is their ultimate objective. We cannot let them do that. And the southern border is ground zero for this battle. The deep state is out of control. These people are committing massive crimes against America. In fact, there is a specific statute that makes a lot of what they are doing into a criminal offense. Okay, I want to read you some of the text of this. This is from 8 U.S. Code section 1324, bringing in and harboring certain aliens. Okay, if you go down to section B, a person who violates subparagraph A shall, for each alien in respect to whom such a violation occurs. Okay, the punishments here are imprisonment for not more than 10 years. And if you actually read this, I want to give you some of the quotes from here. Any person who, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that an alien has come to, entered, or remains in the United States in violation of law, transports or moves or attempts to transport or move such alien within the United States. Okay, Biden's doing this all day, every day. Right? They're putting them on planes, flying them all over the country. They are putting them on buses, taking them all over the country. Flagrant violation here, right? Section 3, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that an alien has come to, entered, or remains in the United States in violation of law, okay, conceals, harbors, or shields from detection, or attempts to conceal, harbor, blah, 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 including in any building or any mode of transportation, or encourages or induces an alien to come, enter, or reside in the United States, knowing or in reckless disregard of the fact that such coming to, entry, or residence is or will be in violation of the law. Any person who's involved in this, right? Everybody in the Biden administration, there's no loopholes here for government officials. Those people, it says, should be put in jail. They should be fined under Title 18. Folks, this is serious. These are criminal offenses that are being perpetrated against our country. And the DOJ is so out of control that they would rather prosecute people who are blowing the whistle on this. Earlier this year, I was in Texas, down in a border town there at a conference. I had the opportunity to interview the former head of Customs and Border Protection. I had the opportunity to interview the former head of ICE. And these people said the Biden administration is deliberately dismantling our border. They are deliberately encouraging this mass invasion of our country. And their ultimate plan is to provide amnesty. And they've got plenty of rhinos willing to sign up. They want to put all these people on the path to citizenship. They want to tell them that Republicans are evil or racist, etc. And they can only have a fair shot at life if they vote for Democrats who will dismantle this country. Folks, they are working overtime to literally dismantle the United States of America. And they're doing it with the full cooperation of numerous religious organizations that are on the take, right? Numerous Catholic organizations are taking big bucks from the federal government. Numerous Lutheran and Jewish and other organizations are being paid by the federal government, millions and millions of our tax dollars, to facilitate this lawlessness, this crime spree that is taking place against our country. And I guarantee if we don't get involved, it's going to get worse. Folks, don't let these people deceive you that this is humanitarian or that we need massive amounts of new immigration so that we can have our fruits and vegetables picked. That's absolute baloney. Right? It's laws of supply and demand. All they're doing here is further depressing the wages of low-wage, unskilled workers in America, which seems to be one of the cruelest things that a person could do right now, is to further depress the wages of Americans who can already struggling to keep food on the table. It's just crazy. Well, that's all we have time for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. This is Behind the Deep State. I'm your host, Alex Newman, senior editor at the New American Magazine. Please share this out. Get your friends involved. Get active. Get a meeting with your congressman. Tell them that this is unacceptable, and we have got to stop this. Thanks for watching. Until next time, God bless you all.
Sophia paused before the door. It read, Department of Bidigital Convergence. Just inside was a new world, a better world, the one of everlasting life, of no pain, of no loss, of no problem. She entered the chamber and her surroundings changed. She saw around her an infinite field of waving golden grain surmounted by cloudless blue sky. The AI voice whispered gently in her mind, Welcome to the singularity. She couldn't see it and couldn't feel it, but her body had almost instantly been covered by a swarm of tiny gray multi-legged bots that melted through her clothes and into her skin. Not perceiving the nightmare, her eyes had already been consumed and the rest of her body was dissolving as the bots digested her flesh. She felt only a warmth suffusing her being. Drowsy, she drifted to sleep, and her last thought was one of panic. Would she ever wake? Could a nightmare vision like this be an outcome of the much-hyped transhumanist technological singularity? Enter the world of the future as illuminated by the experience of the past in Endgame, the new book by Dennis Barrett, the publisher of the New American Magazine, and find out how the disastrous COVID pandemic response fits with the technocratic elite's thirst to create a transhumanist utopia. Get Endgame from shopjbs.org with free shipping with code ENDSHIP, ENDSHIP. Or get Endgame and the Great Reset Collector's issue of the New American Magazine and get free shipping plus an additional 20% off both with code END20, END20.